All right. Good afternoon and aloha, everybody. My name is Bill Kunzman and I am the Deputy Director of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, and I am the Director of Labor's designee as co-chair of this board. This is a public meeting under Hawaii Sunshine Law, Chapter 92, Hawaii Revised Statutes, which we are recording in person as well as Zoom, and this meeting is being recorded. To start the meeting and to document the minutes, the secretary will take a roll call of the voting members and then the ex officio non-voting members. Remote board members, please note that at the advice of the Department of the Attorney General, the chat box has been disabled and you should keep your camera on. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Okay. Co-chair William Kunzman,
Here.
co-chair Luis Oliveira,
Here.
member Jesse Keeladine,
Here.
member Barbara Krieg,
Here.
member Andrew Nomura, absent. Member Brian Tanakuchi,
Here.
member Karen Yasukawa,
Here.
okay, Senator Henry Aquino, absent. And member Andrew Garrett, absent.
Okay, I did just a little while ago, got a message from Rep Garrett. He said he might be a few minutes late, but he should be joining us. I also want to take this opportunity to allow members of the public present to introduce themselves and their organization they represent on a voluntary basis if they so choose. And if there are any attendees who are not alone in the room, please introduce those who you are with. Would anybody like to introduce themselves? Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and move on then to.
I'll introduce myself.
Oh, sorry.
David Rodriguez with the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations.
Tim, a tri-fan, I'm with ADPSO.
It's our IT support and David is our legislative coordinator. So the next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the February 15th, 2024 meeting. We did notice we had a typo on co-chair Salaveria's co-chair in the minutes, but other than that, does anybody have any corrections to the minutes as distributed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. The next agenda item is public comment period for agenda items. And we will take written and oral testimony at this time for agenda items, anywhere on the agenda, and we'll also provide an opportunity for testimony as we go through the agenda items. Is there anybody present who wishes to provide testimony at this time? Not seeing any, we'll move on. And with everybody's indulgence, what I would suggest is that instead of going on to the next agenda item, the hiring of the executive director, that we switch it up and maybe start with the legislation, if that's all right with everybody. Okay, so discussion on legislation. This is in regards to HB 1800 relating to the state budget and SB 2553 relating to the Hawaii Retirement Savings Act. Are there any members of the public in this meeting who would like to provide testimony on this agenda item at this time? If not, I will ask again. So to give you folks a little brief explanation of what happened during the legislative process, the Senate version of the bill that was introduced did move through the legislative process. The measure is in your packet, the final version of that measure, which passed out of the Finance Committee and went to conference. Basically, the bill stayed the same all the way through the process. It was to automatically enroll employees into the program and allow employees to opt out instead of opt into the program. and it had the housekeeping amendment to the definition of covered employer. The bill was only substantively amended by the last committee, House Finance. The Finance Committee amended the measure to strike the $25 million appropriation for the matching contributions for the opt-in from the original act, and lapse that money into the general fund. HB 1800 relating to the state budget, both the House and the Senate drafts contained a provision to delete the $25 million the original act as well. And it appeared that there was an agreement to lapse that money, and perhaps because maybe the legislation would have changed. However, the legislation did not pass the legislature, so essentially there's been no change to the existing act or statute. And we understand that the $25 million appropriation is still there, as well as the fact that the budget for the next fiscal year, starting in July, is the same as it was previously. So the budget still contains $259,064 for the salaries of the executive director, the program specialist, the secretary, computer software, 2,000, and travel, 15,000. So in summary, there's been no changes in either the budget or the statute as it is. Does anybody have any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah. I guess I was tracking the bill toward the end, and the speaker did not appoint any conferees to the bill. So I did call his office I forgot what day it was, but the last week of session, about then to ask him why he's not appointing any conferees, but he never returned my call. So I've asked some of the people there, but nobody seems to know why he did that. But so anyway, that's just from my standpoint, and I guess I feel a little responsible because yeah, I guess Bill and I were supposed to track it, but yeah, he wouldn't respond as to why he didn't appoint any conferees. So, but
Yeah, and we did not also really get an answer, because the director and I were up there during the course of conference too, and we never were really given an explanation as to why house conferees are assigned, and we didn't really know about nobody shared any objections to the measure with us, so we were a little bit surprised that we didn't get any any formal information, and that conferees weren't assigned, so.
yeah. Generally, when the speaker in the past has not appointed conferees, it usually means some sort of internal thing, and the speaker wants to be sure that the bill doesn't pass, I guess, you know. So, yeah. Not sure why.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This one wasn't on my radar too as well. So I know that Bill and yourself, Senator, and everything were kind of tracking along, but not getting assigned conferees is usually a sign that, maybe something came up during the end. I know that the bill also included the provision to lapse the 25 million. So, because the bill didn't pass, then, the 25 million is still intact at this point in time. So what I'm asking, like Bill and the DLNR people to do is to make sure that that gets deposited into the special fund, so that it doesn't lapse. Because if that deposit doesn't happen and it remains as general funds, it will lapse at the end of this fiscal year.
And so, yeah, we have started the process, so we're going to request the release of that money into the general fund, so you should be seeing that sometime in the near future, Director Salaveria.
Bill, also, usually in the budget bill, in the back, and I'm sure you're aware of it, they have a list of all the lapses, but they don't really identify it really well. So it's like, Act 1, 145, Section 5, lapse, So I'm not sure if you checked that, but that it might be buried in there also in the budget bill. So I have no idea why they. I think Bill, you testified that it was okay to lapse the money if we had an opt out, right? So and I'm sure that they were kind of searching around for money, and 25 mil is a lot of loose change.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's not in the proviso section, Senator. So yeah, so for all intents and purposes, the money is still intact.
Okay, thank you, Louis.
So presumably the takeaway is that the legislature doesn't feel like it's necessary to make any adjustments in the program at this time. So I would assume that the board would want to proceed with trying to effectuate the program as is, maybe consider going back to the legislature next year and asking for a change. But what are you folks thinking?
So this is Barbara. That seems to me to be the best course. And I also feel that there's a lot of work that can be done and needs to be done to set up the program that can be done without having that change yet. I mean, obviously, we're challenged at bringing in an executive director, but in my opinion and experience, I think we can bring somebody in to deal with all of the preliminaries, to deal on, procurement, hiring, all of those things, marketing plan, investment principles, whatever it is that we need to do, and then be poised, hopefully, to really launch it once we get, hopefully next session, the change to the opt-out, and hopefully also in the meantime, we can eventually get some wisdom on what was going on that prevented the bill from going through.
Does any other board members have any thoughts regarding that? Does everybody agree? Okay. Well, that might be a good segue to go back to our next agenda item, the preceding agenda item. But before I do that, is there anybody from the public who would like to provide any comment or testimony at this time in regards to the budget bill and the legislation that didn't pass?
Bill, this is Kaylee E.
Go ahead, please.
I just, sorry, I'm having to use two devices. My audio is not working on my laptop. Just wanted to say, at least from our perspective at ARP, we're going to be doing a lot over this down period to work with the House Finance Committee Chair to figure out, what the issues were, as well as working with, although she's no longer really involved, the Lieutenant Governor, and get her thoughts. But my sense is that perhaps more needs to be done in working with Chair Yamashita. I think Barbara's point, and I guess what you folks are looking at, the fact that if the program is close to being up and running, meaning there is an executive director and the process is moving along, I think that'll help a good bit too, as far as having a little bit more impetus behind passing the legislation. So I think it's definitely doable.
Thank you, Kaylee. Is there anybody else who wishes to provide any testimony at this time from the public?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go. Brian, is there anybody else from the board also wants to chime in?
Well, yeah, I guess the suggestion to talk with Representative Yamashita is a good one. The House did not, the House Finance did not pass out the House version of the bill. Yeah, and at that point, I did call Kyle and kind of just explain to him why she should pass the bill, but he didn't, he didn't say it. He hadn't not passed it at that point. Yeah, and I didn't call him after the finance committee didn't pass the House bill out. So anyway, I don't know. Now that Representative Garrett is here, maybe he can clarify everything for us.
Yeah, I wish I was in a position where I could like tell you guys all the answers. Here's what happened, here's what didn't. Yeah, I mean, I serve on finance myself and I wasn't sure what happened because I put that on my priority list as well too for request of a hearing. So I know sometimes we just wait because we know a Senate vehicle is moving. So that might have been in play, but I think for this bill, we didn't appoint conferees at the end either, right? So,
Right.
yeah, and I didn't get an answer as to why. There was kind of the fog of conference toward the end there, but I will, after this call, follow up and see if I can get a little more intel as to what happened and see if that can guide the strategy for next session.
Thank you. That would be helpful. And we did go speak with Rep Yamashita before the onset of conference and did not he did not share any objections or concerns. So yeah, I think it would be helpful to see if we can't get a little bit more information from the finance chair, from the speaker. So. Is there anybody else who, from the public or the board, if they have any comments? Okay, thank you. Well, let's go back to agenda item number 4 then, the hiring of the executive director. Just so you know, we've continued to receive applications for the executive director position, to the executive director position in the meantime. Previously, our conversations were after we did our round 1, and we extended an offer that was refused, that maybe we would wait until after we see how the legislation played out to decide whether to move forward to being a more active recruitment again. Just for everybody's knowledge, we did receive 6 applications over the course of the last 6 months or so. And then if you recollect, there was one application that came in after the board had, or I'm sorry, the panel had already met and screened the first round of applicants. So there's another application sitting out there. I did confer with the selection panel and they're willing to re-engage with the recruitment process on behalf of the co-chairs to derive candidates for the co-chairs and subsequently for the board's consideration. So how would the board like us to proceed with the recruitment?
Quickly as possible, please. Or was there something more specific in that question?
No, that it's kind of my operating assumption as well. I just wanted to make sure that you folks were all on board with that. And I know previously we've had some discussions about, roughly there may be a pool of candidates out there that, sort of similar to the folks that we got in the first round, who could, you know, be more of a subject matter expert and, you know, more of the quote unquote permanent solution? Or was there was also some consideration of maybe we should try to hire somebody on a more temporary basis just to get the program off the ground? So I wanted to bring that back up and see if the board had any thoughts or guidance on how they would like the panel to proceed. Or best candidate, all of the above. Does the board have any thoughts?
So I would not think that trying to hire somebody explicitly on a temporary basis would be a very fruitful strategy. I mean, you find somebody, you know, that we think can do a good job of setting up the program, and we monitor that person's performance and development. And if we're fortunate and have the right person, then we can have that person for the foreseeable future. I mean, you know, that's where I mean, I know we've had discussions about how much financial market expertise the person needs. And that to me is, I think, the open question. Personally, I think we need somebody more, as I've said before, as a high-level project manager to set up the program rather than the financial market expertise. But again, we get what we get. I mean, if we have people who've been submitting applications as far back as 6 months, if we don't move quickly, you know, we're losing them as we speak.
And Barbara, to your point, I think, you know, when Bill, Jade, and I were kind of going through the process of vetting some of the people that did come through and the applications, because of the, you know, the perceived financial, you know, market experience. I mean, the reality is that this is a very small corpus, right? It's not an ERS where we're managing, you know, $16 billion worth of funds. I mean, the executive director that, and we can have this open discussion, the executive director that I think we're looking for is somebody that's really going to go out there and meet with small business people and essentially be very much like, you know, it's kind of like a salesperson. You're going to try and get these people to sign their company up so that this can be offered to their employees. So I think if in some ways, if that's the kind of person that we're looking for, it might open up the pool of potential applicants.
Agreed.
Haley, I see you have your hand up.
Kel has had his hand up for a while.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with both Barbara's and Luis's comments. I think we should move forward with you know, just a recruitment of a director. It might be worthwhile to do a little more targeted recruitment to, you know, for example, people who have experience leading chambers of commerce, local chambers of commerce, or economic development offices, people who might be looking for a new opportunity. But I think we should move forward because I wonder, and this is pure speculation, I have no idea, if one of the reasons why the bill died is because you know, it's a chicken and the egg problem, and we're still stuck as an egg.
Thank you. Kaylee?
Just to kind of reinforce the discussion so far, I think one of the things that's real important this early on, and I hear your point of temporary versus long-term, but if you, as Barbara said, if you find the right person that can be brought along, I'm thinking that you also want someone who can help get the program up and running, which to me is navigating the state system, right? Which is, well, one, definitely being able to work with a board, but understanding the procurement process, if they have that experience, if not specifically within the state, county, or just procurement in general. If they have experience with administrative rules, if they have experience dealing with the legislature, working within the state government. I think that would help a lot too, but of course, obviously you want them to be someone who's gonna be able to manage a program as Louis said, being able to kind of get up to speed and be the salesperson or the face of the program. And I think that's important as well. So anyway, I'm just thinking if we're really super focused or hyper focused on the financial management and, you know, retirement savings experience, you're really going to limit what you have at your fingertips. And I think someone with especially the amazing board that you have, you've got people who have just the skills and support to help navigate and ensure that this executive director has the resources and expertise he or she will need.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any thoughts that they would like to share at this time? Is there any member from the public who would like to provide input at this time? Okay, seeing none. Okay, so I believe the consensus is to enliven the recruitment process. I will contact the other members of the panel and we will go through the resumes that we currently have, and we'll also do some other steps to publicize the recruitment. I did mention to Tom Williams that I would let him know after this meeting, and he could also again place ads in some of the trade organizations that he's involved with, the National Council on Teacher Retirement, the National Council on Public Employee Retirement Systems, the National Association of State Retirement Administrators, and we will do our best to start the recruitment process again and try to come back to you folks as soon as possible with potential candidates as soon as we can, because it sounds like the consensus is, and I hear the chicken and the egg analogy that might be quite fitting in this case to have somebody involved, and as far as not only for the policymakers, but I think that's an important piece of it too that might have been helpful in hindsight with this last legislative session, but all those other things that some of you have mentioned about getting this thing started and getting it off the ground. And I think it's important because it's already been like 2 years now, I think, since the act passed. So we'll do our best to endeavor to find an executive director as soon as possible. Okay. All right. If there's no other input at this time from the board, then I'll move on to, we also have on our agenda the next item, or going back to the discussion on legislation, kind of as a side note, Mr. Taniguchi was unanimously confirmed by the state senate for another term, this being a full 4-year term. So we're very thankful that Mr. Taniguchi has decided to commit to another 4 years with us.
Thank you.
Yes, and we
In
just.
a weak moment, yeah.
And so next year we have 2 members expiring. You know, it was staggered at the very beginning. So Barbara Krieg and Karen Yasukawa, and in 2026, Kayola and Andrews nominations expire. So FYI, we'll have further conversation about that as we get closer to 2026 and the 2025 legislative session. Does anybody from the public want to provide any testimony on this agenda item this time involving Brian Taniguchi, GM 658? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the budget, the fiscal year 2023-2024 fiscal report. Through the first 9 months of the year, the board has spent $3,105.39, which is a 2-cent correction from our last report. Has been spent out of the program's appropriation. No monies have been spent since the last board meeting. So far this fiscal year, the only monies that have been spent on, the board has been on the recruitment, was the travel and the recruitment for the executive director. And we did get information from the Department of the Attorney General. Mike, who is our deputy AG assigned to this board, is in a general funded position. So the Department of the Attorney General is not charging for the legal expenses related to Mike's work on behalf of the board. So any questions, board members? Okay, is there anybody from the public who would like to provide testimony on this matter regarding the fiscal report? Seeing none. The next agenda item has to do with the Hawaii State Ethics Commission, the annual financial disclosure. And this was a courtesy reminder for all the board members that your annual financial disclosure is due to the Ethics Commission by May the 31st. And we included in the board packet the e-filing quick guide for state board members. So if you have any questions when you can do that, you can call the Ethics Commission. In that guide, it also has how to reset your password if you happen to not write it down or you've forgotten it. I just did it recently. It's really a pretty simple process. So, does anybody from the board have any questions about that? Anybody from the public wish to provide testimony on this agenda item regarding the Hawaii State Ethics Commission reminder? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Does anybody from the public, somebody from the public wish to speak? Okay,
Bill, sorry, this is Kaylee.
yes.
Regarding our follow-up with anyone on the legislative process, I presume you're still the best person to continue to work with and keep informed along the way, and then you'll just engage the board as needed.
Yes, and I believe I'll continue, the board has delegated to Brian and I, so if people.
Okay,
Yeah. if they
okay,
want
Brian too then.
Brian or I, and then Brian and I will, stay on the same page. And so, yeah, if anybody has any intel, please feel free to share with us, and then we'll certainly report back to the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The chair does not have any announcement at this time. We will schedule another board meeting to be determined. Hopefully that will be driven by the recruitment for the executive director. And with that, may I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Mahalo.